Cool. So for any of the guys who weren't able to make the live session, they'll be able to review this. So we'll get you to just quickly reintroduce yourself when you're ready as well. And
yeah, of course.
Over to you.
Can you guys see my screen? Yeah, perfect, guys. So welcome to today's session. It's on mentorship, and like you just said there, Hannah, as well, you're taking this into perspective, but I guess it's directed at fit businesses, but really it's business centric. So, we'll go over my beliefs anyway on business and how they're all pretty similar. There are some nuances with fitness businesses, but yeah, this is the topic we'll be covering today. It's something that I'm super passionate about. I love fitness on one side and I love business. So it's like the perfect combo. So when Hannah asked me, I was like, yeah, sweet, let's do this. I think there's some really great similarities between the two as well, between fitness and business. And you'll hear me no doubt use some sort of examples and analogies as we go as well, just to try and relate it back to kind of, what you're going through there, Matt. I just love helping people level up essentially. I do it outside of my day job, and I've got a bit of we'll go through, I guess, my background and stuff like that, but a bit of a unique history on the gym side, the fitness side, and the business side. So yeah, like super pumped that Hannah asked me to do this. Really excited. It's unique, I think, in our space for the guys at Fitbox wanting to put this on for you guys. So I think, try and lap up everything that you've been provided. I know there's some big shoes to fill after last week's Jason Kalipa session. I got to check it out a little bit there. Hannah, thanks for sending through the link. Plenty of notes I took down. No, I'm joking. But yeah, like the guy's a stud. He's been around a long time. He's done a lot of stuff. And it's kind of a really good kind of follow on to that, because he did touch a little bit, I think, throughout the session on some mentoring and some business coaching aspects. And it does tend to flow on from, what Jason kind of went through. I know it was more of a free flowing kind of thing, and that would have been really good. We'll definitely get some of that in there. But yeah, I think the big thing that stands out, and that, I've gone through the process as well, Matt, you said you're going through that startup kind of stage, but when you go through something like the academy, the Fitbox Business Academy, and you're getting towards the end of it, there's always that nervousness, or like, how do I keep the momentum going, or trepidation, and you kind of want to keep kicking goals, especially if you've been taking action on the things that you've been learning each week. So I think this is a really good kind of like segue towards the end there, on how to keep doing that, and I'm more than open to give you, suggestions on where to go and how to get that sort of stuff. So yeah, that let me see how we go here. My technique, I've not really presented this way before, so
no, you're nailing it. This is great.
But yeah, I guess the session outline, and we can have some free-flowing discussions here, Matt. Like, feel free to jump in whenever you want. I don't want this to be just me just delivering information. I want you to have some questions. But yeah, like, it's such a broad topic. Business is huge, right? Like, it's the same as fitness, right? Like, there's no one size fits all. There's definitely some underlying fundamentals and some core sort of aspects to business, but usually it's going to be hard to cover it all in this sort of session. So we'll try and keep it kind of like super high level, and then if you've got any specific questions. But we're going to cover the different types of mentoring, I guess, more, and some advisory and business coaching. When I just say that, it's kind of all under that same umbrella. Being a coach versus being an owner operator, you already discussed, just before we started recording, that you're kind of stuck in the trenches right now and you want to get out of that a little bit. So that's perfect. When to seek mentoring and business coaching is a really good question to ask, and we'll go through that. Obviously, the benefits of having a mentor or advisor or business coach, whatever you want to call it, there's plenty there, and some frameworks that a good mentor or a good advisor should be able to help you with, right? Like building through the systems and different processes within the business. So yeah, that's kind of the topics we'll be covering today. And then anything else you want to go through, Matt, we're more than happy to go through. The goals for the session, like I said, I don't want it just to be me just like talking to a screen and people on mute. I definitely want you to have some questions. It's probably more of a, like a thought exercise more than anything. Like, it's not going to be very strategic. I know some of the sessions were like on ads and like some, vision, mission, values sort of stuff. And Jason's was kind of a pretty good Q&A, like the entire session. So it's going to be more like that. Like it's going to give you some probably things to think about more than anything, just because it is so broad. Like it covers, business mentorship should cover the entire business model, not just one sort of like tactic or strategy that's kind of something you can outsource anyway. So yeah, it's quite broad. This session is definitely for you, not for me. So make sure that you don't leave with any questions, right? Like I don't want you to sort of like, shit, I do it all the time at Zoom meetings. Like you end the Zoom meeting and you're like, damn, I should have asked that question. So ask away. I don't know if there's a chat box or chuck your hand up, just unmute. Feel free to jump in whenever you need to. But yeah, it's definitely so big, the topic of business, but like a business mentor is there to be your shining light and to help you, help guide you through all of the obstacles and the different sort of questions you really have is probably more than anything in business. So I want you to stop and really think about and consider what it would be like to have that business mentor or coach or advisor, and the benefits you would get out of that, right? Like that's kind of where we want to get to with this session. Like you probably know all the things that you want to get done, but it's like trying to navigate your way through. And that's the whole point of having a business mentor is, trying to be that shining light on the map and help you get there faster. So yeah, and most people haven't even thought about it, right? Like, or that's my experience anyway, in this sort of realm, in the fitness space, people haven't really thought about it. So just want to open your eyes up to, the opportunity and the different variations of mentorship that are out there. It sounds very prestigious, mentorship, but really, if you simplify it down to business coaching or advisory, it's kind of all encompassing. And then I'll try and highlight as we go through as well that, and get you to understand that, majority of businesses or all businesses are really comprised of, like I said before, the similar fundamentals. You might adapt them slightly to your model or your concept or your vision that you have in your head, but really they boil down to the same core functions and fundamentals. And this is kind of what I was touching on, Hannah. It's probably really good for you guys as well. I know you guys have got a pretty good team there anyway. But a good mentor should have already negotiated these through their business, experience. You're not going to get a mentor that doesn't have experience. We'll touch on that as well. That's a thing that's happening. But yeah, like they should be able to guide you based on their experience, because most business is actually very similar, right? Like, fitness is, there's nuances there, and your type of fitness, you've got a small space, you want to do sort of some one-on-one stuff, and get some subcontractors in versus, Jason Cleversees had something like a 4,000 square meter gym or something like that, like slightly different, but the underlying fundamentals there are pretty similar. And then ultimately, if you're going to proceed, post, the academy and begin looking for a mentor, hopefully I can give you some things to think about. And when you're going down that rabbit hole of what to look for, what questions to ask, how to better understand what type of kind of like mentoring or coaching you should be looking for. But yeah, I guess firstly, I probably should give you some background on myself. We did talk about it. I do have some military experience. I was in the Navy, so don't hold that against me, Matt. But yeah, like I said, I think I've lived like 3 different lives. I've had that military experience when I was super young. I was for the country. It was kind of like my escape to get out of the country and become my own man and travel the world. And it kind of led me down the path of, I actually had a couple of knee reconstructions in the military playing football. And, like that's kind of like how I got into fitness, was through my rehab. And then you'd kind of fall in love with it. Then I became, qualified in fitness. I discharged from the Navy, became a personal trainer, went on to own, multiple gyms, run big events. We were super early into CrossFit, 2007, 8, 9, around there. And then transitioned from that to starting one of Australia's largest health and wellness distribution companies in the independent gym space. And we were acquired last year as well. So I've gone through that like kind of whole life cycle a couple of times in multiple different types of businesses. And I still feel like I'm just getting started as well. So, like 15 plus years experience across, some broad categories, independent gym space. Like I said, I've got to see both sides of the coin. I've been able to see that, the grind, the startup life of running a gym. Like we started as personal trainers back in the day at Fitness First, and we got kicked out of Fitness First because we were doing CrossFit there. This is back in like 2008 or something like that. And then we went on to open our own gym. So I've done, like I've cleaned the toilets many years. I've done all of that, programming, coaching. And then on the flip side, like my wife and I started Fit Trends. So that was our distribution company in about 2014. So if you've ever seen Fit Aid or Life Aid in Australia, that was us. We're responsible for bringing that to Australia. And we've kind of aligned with that, very similar to how I started my gym and fitness journey. Was it was just a product. We were like, how is this not out there? How is this not replacing all of the Coke fridges? Like, what is this all like? It was just a deep passion for helping people. So it kind of went from like that service-based business to a product and distribution. So like import, export across multiple countries. And there was a decision I had to make when we were about to have our first daughter. So I ended up selling out of the gyms. We had a couple of spaces at one stage. I think we had about 8 to 10 full-time trainers on payroll, no contractors or anything like that. We did it on a pretty big scale. And then, the decision was made, there was a bigger opportunity for me and, my wife in the distribution company. So we sold out of that, sold out of the gyms and just went full throttle into distribution in the products. And that, really paid off with the acquisition last year. So we grew that to be the largest in the space. We got to work with brands like Life Aid, Switch Nutrition, Blue Dinosaur Bar, Better Body Food. Like we've brought some big brands to the gym space in Australia. And then we got acquired. So Life Aid saw what we're doing. Obviously, we were with them for a long time and they just wanted us to focus on, I guess, their product more than anything, because we were getting quite big and quite busy. So yeah, they acquired us, and I guess that brings me to now. So now after post-acquisition, I'm the director of sales for Life Aid Australia and New Zealand. So I get to work with the international team there. I also do some business advisory and one-on-one mentoring, just because I love that space. I love it. And, I feel like I'm kind of uniquely qualified after going through a few cycles of, startup to exit into different types of business, service and product-based businesses. And then I guess why Hannah's kind of brought me on here, I do have some fit biz courses and podcast things launching way back at the end of the year. So not really here to sell anything to anyone, but just here to, give back. I feel like I've been around the block a few times. And like I said, I'm still feel like we're just getting started here. But
awesome. Sorry to interject there, Hayden. Just so you know, Kiriana is joining us as well. Kiriana is a CrossFit Box owner. Thanks for jumping on, Karen. Apologies for the mix-up with the email as well.
I was just going to say, was there a time that you felt like you needed to change direction, or was it more context, like say with family and all those kind of things?
In the transition of businesses
yeah, because obviously there was you've gone from PT to then owner to then kind of going more supply side. Was that a goal? Was that a goal for you at the start, or was that more of a follow on?
Yeah, no, it was never like. I think if you ever look at not the end of a business, or 5 years later or 10 years later down the track, I don't think you can ever really pick the path that you take, right? Like it's looking back on hindsight is pretty easy, but definitely not at the start. That's not something that I would have thought. I think the natural progression, usually what I see, and probably myself, is you get into personal training because you discover fitness and you're like, shit, I just want to help people. Like, it worked for me and I want to do that for others. And then how do you do that on a bigger scale? You go and open your own gym. One, you get kicked out of Fitness First because you're trashing the pump room running CrossFit classes. Or two, like you want to help more people, right? We went on to run multiple site CrossFit gyms with almost 10 full-time trainers. So we're pumping, back in the heyday, and it's just a bigger scale. So you just get to help more people. Like as long as the underlying principles of what you're trying to do, we wanted to make money, and that's what business is about. We'll get into that. You want to provide and you want to do well in business, hopefully. That's what you're here for in the academy. Definitely wanted to do that. And then I guess the distribution and the changing from gym ownership and service based to product import export, all of that, FMCG, everything that's involved there. again, it's kind of just on a bigger scale. We could then impact literally millions of lives in Australia by providing better products. And that's kind of like just the stepping stones that we wanted. Definitely not at the start, but I think that was where we would end up or whatever. Like we kind of, probably luckily just stumbled across, Life Aid back in the day. We struck up some good conversations. We fell in love with the product, the vision, the mission, the values of, what that brand brought. And we wanted to bring that to the people of Australia. We're like, why is this not already here? So I think it's just kind of like, as long as you've got the desire to level up and help people and do the right thing, there'll be some, I guess, pivotal moments where you get to make the decision, right? Like, do you want to bring on 2 or 3 subcontractors? Because that's just bringing more people into your space. And do you want to franchise, like down the track, like 5 years, you get your systems and everything nailed and you could potentially franchise. So you're just helping more people. There's always going to be hopefully benefits to that for you in terms of business. And everyone wants to look after themselves as well financially. But yeah, I think it was a desire to help more people kind of led that. Cool. All right. Pop quiz. So a bit of a question. So like I said, I wanted to keep this as kind of like a free flowing, more of a conversation and stuff like that. So feel free to shout out any questions. Like I just wanted to reach out and see why you guys were here, like what was your business goals when you joined up with the Academy? Like what was that for you, Matt?
Yeah, so I think just the Academy in general was a great opportunity to learn. It's like you don't really get, not that I've inquired, but you don't get too many opportunities where you get to talk to people in the industry that are kind of where you want to be in terms of the level of success, right? So even for yourself, it's like, all right, well, you guys have all done certain things, and saying earlier was the idea that, well, funny enough, you guys have all done similar things, like you're talking about the principles or the foundations that led to those outcomes. So it's like, well, I'm not the person, or my business isn't where I want it to be. If I was, I wouldn't need to do any of these things, right?
Exactly.
That's like, so I think that ongoing learning is a big thing for me. And yeah, just finding what the fundamentals are, because I think, context and all those things change per person or per individual or per business. But yeah, the keys to success are there. You guys have all done it. So I think that was the biggest thing for me. And I think getting on board and supporting things that obviously I'm part of, like obviously, again, Faster is right around the corner from myself, and kind of supporting other businesses around that area as well. It's like, well, it's relationship building. So and I think, if you're gonna, like, if you assimilate to the same type of people, you can only breed success if everybody's kind of after the same level. So
yeah. And sorry, was it Ariana? So I forgot.
Kiri, you can call me Kiri, that's fine. Apologies for the lateness. I didn't finish the class till 12:30, so I was racing here.
No, that's all right.
Look, I feel like I'm pretty privileged to have been offered the opportunity to take part in this. I mean, it's not often you get something for free that is perfectly aligned with your business proposition, I guess. CrossFit, people getting what we do, if not CrossFit, at least functional fitness, or at least in the gym space. So I think there's 2 camps of people. There are people who are happy just to maintain status quo, and then there's people who always want to strive for improvement, really focus on learning. So I sit in the focus on learning camp. So I'm always keen to learn more, because I'm not an expert. And I think from a small business owner perspective, there is no guidebook as such as how to run it, or to do a good job. There's lots of different ways of doing it. So I love to listen to people, their take on things, their suggestions, and then obviously pick and choose what I choose to adopt. So what I really loved about this was, like I said, that it's gym specific. Now, I won so I'm up in Brisbane. So I won a business Women in Leadership grant from the Lord Mayor a few months ago. And part of that, nice. I get to go to a lot of free webinars. Yeah, thank you. So, I mean, these grants are there. If you're good at tender submissions, the money is there for you. So that's wonderful, because it's women in business, but it's not gym specific. So I had the CEO of Universal clothing brand talking about, you know, how to like manage attrition rates, but she's talking about a massive business with loads of employees. That's not gym specific. Whilst I took some gold nuggets from her advice, it's not actually the same. I don't get as much out of these sessions as, of her sessions as I do these, because this is, like I said, gym specific. So I'm always looking at growing. I put my hand up for anything. If it's free, that's always a good thing because there's limited budget, right? So I see the number one thing that a mentor once told me was value your time. And I see this as really, really valuable and growing myself. And, you know, if the gym is not always going to work out, what can I say as an individual? Well, you know, I am absolutely putting this on my CV to say I've attended. You know, it's not a qualification, but it counts for something, you know? So how much time do I allocate? It's not really a time thing. I'll just put my hand up when I'm free. But I'm also doing a business accelerator program through NAB, the bank. Why not? So there you go. Yeah. So I probably spend a little bit more than most people on self-development and trying to grow the business within my. Sorry, I've got my cat.
No, that's all right. You kind of beat me.
2 weeks ago, I had a chicken. You know. And then you said versus what you typically see. Sorry, what was the second part?
Yeah, I haven't really got there, but yeah, I just wanted to it was more like asking the question, and you gave a great answer there with, you know, going above and beyond and putting your hand up for anything, right? Like typically, you know, and asking gym owners, and maybe this is for you, Matt, like asking how much time you commit or money as well to, or allocate to growing your personal business skills or acumen, working on your business outside of obviously this academy. So this one doesn't count, but, you know, outside of this previously, or, you know, whatever's next, monthly, weekly budget, you know, in your budget, because, you know, budgets are limited and you got to budget for it. Versus, I guess, from my perspective, what I've typically seen in the past, and, you know, I'll be the first to put my hand up, you know, for when I used to run the gyms and stuff like that. It was kind of always about upskilling the coaching aspect. Like, I want to be the best trainer in the world. I want to be, you know, I want to learn the best new technique for squatting or Olympic lifting. And look, by all means, that's great. Like, you need to do that. You want to be able to deliver world-class products, but I don't see the same happening for the business side. You know, typically in the fit biz, I'm going to call it, you know, in the gym space, any sort of fit biz really, people just don't put it into, I don't know, even their train of thought. Maybe Kira, maybe you're an outlier. Matt, I don't know, maybe you're doing a lot of these grants and the NAB sort of like business stuff as well. I tend to find you have to dig pretty deep to find that sort of stuff, or really have a burning desire to want to upskill. But I just don't see that it, you know, tends to not match, you know, like everyone wants to be the best coach, you know, or the newest type of training methodology. I guess, and why I think that is probably the low barrier to entry in the gym space. Like, really, to become a gym owner eventually, but to become a personal trainer or a group class instructor, you know, a level 3, level 4, whatever that looks like, do the CrossFit cert, get the insurance, find a building, get the lease, you know, it's pretty low barrier to entry. So by the time people get there, you know, they get there on the fuel of, you know, having the passion to help people, not necessarily having the passion to want to be good at business, right? Like, and, you know, I definitely fell in love with CrossFit. You know, we went through, I'm not sure when you popped in, Kiri, but, you know, back in 2007 and 8, like I went through that, like I fell head over heels for CrossFit, like went down the rabbit hole, did all of that, end up having, you know, pretty good success there, even competing and stuff. And the business comes second, you know what I mean? Like, you don't really think about that until you need to, is in my experience, where people get to. So I truly believe.
Interesting you say that. That kind of really speaks to the whole reason why we wanted to build the academy in this way. I think that a lot of gym owners would either recognize, or they definitely know someone that they started their business because they're super passionate about fitness and helping people. And really, it doesn't set up a great foundation for running a good business. So part of why we're even here and why we created this thing is to help kind of provide resources to bridge that gap. And certainly I recognize that because we do these short intakes, that having, you know, bringing you on board, and part of that idea as well is speaking to this idea of mentorship as an ongoing strategy for for continually improving your business. So it all kind of fits together, doesn't it?
I mean, you mentioned low barrier for entry, and especially CrossFit. I mean, it's not even a financial barrier because you don't need that much equipment. You can get by with extreme little. I mean, we looked just recently at, a Snap fitness franchise, for example. Now that is a barrier for entry because, oh my goodness, franchise fees, setup fees. It's expensive. Whereas CrossFit, like, no one asked us other than the bank for a bank loan what our business plan was. Literally nobody did. As long as I had my level 1, I submitted my application with my reasons. I don't actually know if anyone gets rejected, to be honest. And I actually think that's a disservice.
Because you're only going to find out in the long run, right? Like whether you're any good at it or not. Like I believe that, and you already touched on it, Kiri, like having the underlying skills and the, VC, having something on a resume aside, it's a critical piece and no one can take that from you. Like obviously the passion for helping people and the coaching, that's definitely a skill you can acquire. But so same goes for the business side of things, having the acumen. And if you got shut down today, having the confidence where you could just restart again. Obviously, it's not going to be that easy. You probably shut down for a reason, like pandemics, things like that. Who would have ever thought about that, right? Like, so you should be able to just kind of pop back up. But if you think back, maybe Matt, you're still pretty fresh, but if you think back to when you started, how much you know now versus how much you knew then, and if you had to restart, how much faster could you do it with the knowledge you have now? And then kind of winding that back to the topic and having a mentor, like in the context of mentor or business coaches, or courses like this, and we'll go through that. They would have even vastly more knowledge than you. And Matt, you said you joined here to kind of get that kind of knowledge. Obviously, it's an ongoing thing, right? Like no one can give you everything in one session. You need to sort of build layer by layer. Everyone's slightly different. Everyone's businesses are at different sort of stages. Everyone's got different goals, like financial or internal, vision, mission, values, external facing vision, mission, values. So, bringing it back into context of that is, would you see that as valuable? You know what I mean? Like most people don't even think about it, but if you could do it faster, easier, wasting less money is probably a big one. Like, I've made plenty of mistakes in my time, and mistakes don't come cheap, either time or money wise. Matt, are you currently allocating any time or money outside of, maybe this is super fresh or early in the stage, but have you thought about that, or do you allocate time to upskilling in terms of the business side?
Probably not as much in the business side. I think like things like this, the value is that fact. Like it's kind of, I suppose how my brain works is you kind of figure out the jigsaw and where to put all the pieces of the puzzle. So I think because most of my time is usually taken up with just the boots on ground sessions.
Coaching.
Yeah, the actual coaching. And then the rest of the time is just doing the bare minimum, like admin stuff and doing all the other things. I think that's where the kind of prioritize and execute kind of principle comes in there of really defining what is the next step. It's pretty much exactly what you guys have all been saying is these points where, you've made mistakes and all these kind of things. So it's like, well, potentially you guys didn't have somebody or you didn't have the outlets like I am right now with you guys understanding where you were at that given time. Potentially I can do it better and faster and kind of get to that point a bit quicker that I want to, just because I'm learning it from you guys. And then it's the application. It's like, all right, well, still going to make mistakes along the way. And I think that's one of them. It's like this idea of going, all right, well, I'm upskilling in terms of my general like coaching skills and a degree and all those kind of things. It's probably fortunate that my degree is half business as well. But it is that idea of, well, it's like you can have a degree and still be really a terrible practitioner, right? So it's kind of getting real hands-on experience from you guys about, all right, well, this is what we learned. Don't do this. Like, all right, I'll listen.
That aligns perfectly, with the topic, right? Like you have to be open, and we'll go through that. But like some of the biggest opportunities that I see here is like, and we've just touched on that, like upskilling coaching. If you think about like delivering a great product to people, you can change people's lives with and bring it back to CrossFit, because that's my background, with an air squat, with a PVC pipe, like you can onboard people and change their lives by giving them good movement and, pretty cheaply, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't take a degree to sort of learn the CrossFit methodologies, but coaches will tend to go and drop $3,000, or you said, a degree on, health science or whatever that looks like. And thank God yours is half business as well. I'm not sure what they're teaching at university for it these days. But yeah, you definitely need to sort of budget it in there. And Kira, you're doing, by the sounds of it, a great job finding, all of the free resources or government money out there. But like, you definitely need to think about allocating that. And it's a huge opportunity that I see in the fit biz space is everyone's focused so heavily, unless you're franchises do, so Kira, there is definitely some benefits to franchises. You shouldn't be paying a franchise fee if they don't have all of the SOPs and the framework there for you to be successful. So if you're buying a secondhand one, I'd ask, why? But definitely new locations. But so many coaches, fit businesses, CrossFit gyms, whatever that looks like, independent gym space, focus on the product and the coaching. And this one Olympic lifting course is going to make me so much better than the gym across the road, so I'm going to win. If you just pivot a little bit and kind of, even if you just evened it out 50-50 and allocated time, resources, plenty of free stuff out there. Kiri's an example of that, or maybe just grants. Maybe you can teach everyone how to apply for those. But yeah, if you can kind of just even it up a little bit, and having someone, and we're going to go into mentoring and different types as well. The whole purpose of it is to sort of shortcut. I definitely didn't have a mentor until recently, the last few years. Back in the early days of CrossFit, it was all dodgy YouTube videos, mostly on squatting and med ball, wall balls and stuff like that. So, there's a huge opportunity to set yourself apart from the other gyms in the space if you just upskill a little bit on the business and the professionalism side. And then going back to kind of like, why we start, right? Like, most of us start because we have a passion for helping people and wanting to change people's lives. But you definitely can't do that unless you keep the lights on and you can pay the bills, right? So you can essentially help more people and do a better job of, why you initially started, typically the business, if you can, be more successful in business, if that makes sense. All right. Where are we? Yeah. So I've definitely got to see, both sides from that, independent gym space, and now I guess in the big business kind of side of things, with, an acquisition to LifeAid. Most big businesses are privy to having boards of directors, advisory boards, different things like that, which is kind of so far out of the realm of independent gym space. But there's a reason why they have that. There's a reason why there's, 5 directors or 5, people that sit on an advisory board for a big business, because they've got the brains, they've done other businesses in the past, and they can help guide that. We're talking massive businesses that are making $1 million calls or $1 billion calls, right? There's definitely a reason for that. So, it doesn't mean that we can't do that in the fit biz space. It just means it probably looks a little bit different. And what does that look like for us is probably, I guess, the bigger question. And that brings us to the next one, like the different types of mentoring and coaching, like what that sphere or that ecosystem looks like. And I've probably got it listed, like in a kind of like, I don't want to say cheapest, but maybe easily accessible, sort of low cost, low barrier method, all the way through to, the bottom one. But, definitely books and podcasts are huge, right? Like, if you're not doing that, that's a no-brainer. Like, everything has pros and cons too. So, in the books and podcasts, you can read a book and get one. If you can get one thing, there's that saying, you get one thing out of a book. What's a book cost? $30 or something like that. Podcasts and blogs and things like that. The only caveat I would put on it is that anyone can put information up on the internet. There's no gatekeeper to say that's right or wrong, that is actually effective or not. So you've kind of got to go into it knowing that. Books, I would say there's probably a slightly bigger barrier, because you've got to be good enough to write a book and have a deal. So at least they come with a little bit of background. Whereas, in the podcast space, what I would do is probably find someone that you align with and you can listen to and, absorb their information, because there's some pretty, hopefully not like this, presentation, but there's some pretty dry podcasts out there. Great information, but sometimes it's hard to listen to and absorb it, right? So you've got to kind of have a good mix of both. And, that's there's definitely paid versions of podcasts, but that's probably on the lower sort of level. of mentoring, because you can learn from anyone, right? Throughout history, it might change a little bit because we're in 2022 and the internet is a thing now versus back in the 1900s. But you can still pick up things from pretty old books. Programs and courses like this, Kiri, you've probably got maybe we could get a hit list of other courses or different sort of programs we can look at, but same deal. Like, if you can choose wisely, you can get some really good and amazing value. Yes, they're going to start to cost more, right? Like, you can pay, I guess a university course is a course, right? Like, there's tens of thousands of dollars there, and there's anything in between. We've got the academy that we're doing right now, and that's free, I guess, because Hannah managed to do a sweet deal with the government over in Queensland. No, I'm joking. Cut that out.
As I like to say, it's only free because you guys pay taxes. So you've already paid for it, you may as well do it.
So, and there's going to be everything in between, right? So, but yeah, like, there's some quality courses. The only thing I would say is make sure that you do your checks on who is, providing the course, like NAB Bank, or, or if it's a person, like, what's on the back end of that kind of thing, like, hopefully they're not trying to sign up, a house loan or something like that. Hopefully it's something more pure. But yeah, and also it's a pretty low barrier to entry as well, for making a course online. So just make sure you do research on who's done that. Make sure they've got some, some wins on the board and they're giving some good context. Also, because we're pretty global now, make sure that what you're doing is relevant to Australia is probably the biggest thing. So, there's plenty of information out there on, like, the US. It's such a big market, so a lot of people do content for the US. So make sure it's kind of relevant to what you guys are doing. And then, once it's completed, like we talked about this at the very, very start, once this course is completed, what's next, right? Like, usually there's a start and a finish for courses or programs, but then you've got to go on your merry way after that. So it's just, keeping that in mind. The next one would be like associations or organizations. So things like this, Kiri, did you say you're in the women's business, something over in Queensland?
Yeah, so the government, it was $5,000 that you could apply for, and that would to be spent in the technology space. So you just had to have a female who had 50% minimum ownership in the business, and it had to have a certain turnover. Okay. So yeah, as part of that, I got $5,000 to spend on what I asked, or what my tender was submitted for. So for me, I asked for SEO. So I have a company currently doing SEO for my business, using that grant money. So, I have to provide evidence. So I'm not just using it to buy gym equipment. But yeah, it was, but there's other grants. Like, I got, after the shutdowns, there was a business recovery grant. I got 15 grand from the government then. Yeah, it was amazing. So I submitted an application for that, and the 15 grand I got was divided into signage, a new website, and photography. And you know what? This is a massive amount of money that I got given, which I wouldn't have budgeted for as an individual. But none of those things, like, you got to know what you're good at, right? And I'm not good at taking photos, working on websites, or 100%. Creating signage. So I was going to spend that with somebody who knew what they were doing. It just happened that the government paid.
That's great.
Hey, Kiri, do you reckon you could put in any advice for people who might be looking for grants of a similar nature, like where you would go to look for that kind of thing?
Yeah. I'll find it now, and I'll just pop it in. Yeah, no worries.
Amazing. Yeah. I think Matt's writing notes in the background.
Look, free money, you can't say no to free money, right? So back to the topic, associations and organizations. So things like EO, or Entrepreneurs Organization, YPO, there's a bunch out there. But as we're stepping up kind of like the pyramid or the hierarchy, there's usually like a minimum sort of like net worth or value of your business. You need to qualify to get into these. I guess like CrossFit affiliate owners have a similar sort of network and things like that. A franchise owner group would have that as well. The good thing is they're a great source of more like peer-to-peer conversations, and you can kind of have some back and forward. Oh, Matt, what did you go through? When you were trying to do your lease, or you can have some conversations with people that have really doing the same thing as you. I guess that can kind of be a con as well, right? Like, you're talking to the same sort of person, you're not getting an outside perspective. So it can be a pro and a con. And usually people in those are going to be on very similar levels. And then when we step to the kind of like the last one, we touched on it a couple of slides ago, but it's more like big business kind of like advisory boards or board of directors. And then, one-on-one mentoring kind of sits in this realm as well, because it kind of steps up. It's that continuous or ongoing sounding board for guiding you through the maze of business, like having questions that relate directly to your business. A board is great because their job is specifically to do the right thing by the company or the business. In our space, it's usually maybe it's an owner operator, maybe you have a few coaches, or maybe you have a couple of owners. You can make, you're probably both directors, and you probably should have director meetings. I don't know many gyms that do that, but you should be making the best decisions for the business in those things. You have to legally, and then one-on-one mentorship and business coaching kind of sits there as well for people that aren't at that massive level, because you can access it, but it just costs, right? So what it's worth to you needs to be more than what you're paying for it, if that makes sense. So there needs to be the value trade, but the pros are, it's going to have the biggest or the most amount of expertise, because you're going to get the oldest, wisest heads. You don't want too old, but you want, but you're also probably going to see the highest fees here. And sometimes in advisory or, board of directors, you're going to need to give up equity and things like that in your company, because that's, the value proposition for someone giving you their information. Like someone that's been in business for 20 years or whatever has a lot of information, and that's obviously valuable, right? So they typically will ask for equity or different things like that. And you can do that on a small scale. You don't necessarily need to be a BHP or this huge company to have that. But yeah, it's worth keeping in mind that people that have that value are typically going to want to ask for something in return for that as well.
I've just popped in the chat whilst we're on the topic of grants and free money. There's one there, Matthew. I've just sent you the link. It's called Business Basics Grant. So I just had a quick look at eligibility. So you will be eligible because you're Queensland based, but you can spend it in terms of the eligible activities. It includes training and coaching, for example, or website.
So if you wanted to engage a mentor like Hayden.
Maybe.
Yeah. So
depends how this presentation goes, I suppose.
I really just,
thanks for that. That's awesome.
Like I've applied for grants and they're legit. Like the money is there. You just have to be on it because it will fill quickly. So like I'm happy for you to have a chat with me if you want me to check your submission and stuff. But look, all you need to do is say you want to use my Fit Hustle for your business advice, and he would have to provide you with like a quote, and that's what you submit with your application. But it's easy and it's money there, and it's exactly on point with what Hayden is saying about mentoring or coaching, because that's an eligible activity. Anyway, little plug, even though I don't work for the government.
Awesome, thank you. Really appreciate it.
You should work for the government, Kiri. That's all right.
Get paid overtime, right?
Yeah. And it's worth noting kind of in this realm as well. And I think, Kiri, you said you got some grants and you kind of practitioners and outsourced services, kind of like, digital ads or signage people, photographers, I would say kind of sit outside of this realm, but they're worth, keeping in mind. Like you don't want to be doing stuff you're not necessarily good at. If you can avoid it, right? Like if you can get free money for someone to pay for it, you definitely want that professionalism there. So moving on, at the very start, like I think I mentioned, but I'm going to put this back to you guys. Like, where do you guys want to get to in your business? What's the ultimate goal for you guys? We all start somewhere, like startup life, doing all the coaching sessions, cleaning the toilets, doing the programming is typically not where people want to end up, right? Maybe it is, but I'm hoping you guys are here on the session because you want to get maybe somewhere else. So Matt, I'll throw it to you. Like, what's your ultimate goal with the business?
Yeah, it's definitely hovered always around the same, but I think it's definitely changed to potentially opening up a school. So I pretty much like the idea of like kind of the American scheme of scholarships and the universities, and it's probably not offered. So for me, it's like the idea of kind of changing some of the sport in Australia is our grassroots compared to overseas grassroots is not even close. And I know there's more money and there's kind of bigger pool and of potential athletes and stuff like that. So yeah, my end goal is actually to create a very similar method or approach, because in my experience, there's been a lot of, like I said, with the junior athletes in particular, there's just no money. Like their parents can't afford to put them. They might have all the talent in the world. They might have the mentality to actually take it somewhere, and the opportunity just goes missing. So it's like, for me, it's like, well, how do you bridge that gap? And going, well, you if I could offer that level of like scholarships and stuff like that, so they can actually pay to play and get their like schooling degree or whatever they want from that. I think that's just something obviously very rewarding personally for me. But I think that opens up something that doesn't necessarily happen in Australia at the moment. You can kind of go to uni for small scholarships and stuff like that, but usually still have to pay. Like you've got to be able to afford those things still on top of. And I find it interesting that, even some of our professional athletes struggle to, speaking of CrossFit and so forth, it's like some of the bills they got to pay to literally represent Australia in a sport is ridiculous. So I suppose my end goal would be provide that opportunity. It's like have a successful enough business that you can offer these things to the dedicated, like the people that want it, who want to be hungry for it. So.
Yeah, and that's key, right? Like having a successful enough business to sustain that or to build to that, right? Like think of the end goal, think of the back end frameworks and everything that you would need to have in place for that. And it comes down to dollars and cents, right? Like what you would need there in terms of systems and structure, money in the bank to do that, which is an amazing goal and it's a great vision. But yeah, that's incredible. Kiri, have you got an end goal for your business or ultimate goal?
So we're at a bit of a different stage to Matthew. We had a 5-year affiliate anniversary. So we've been around a while. And I mean, I would honestly say the last 2 years wasn't about growth. It was just about staying viable. But we're in a position now where we know what has worked and we need to actually start pulling in a decent income. We've got to decide, do we continue this as a hobby, which is what it has been? So I have another job. My husband has another job because it has been like a hobby passion project. Or do we go all in, purchase another location? The costs are going to be significantly less than setting up one because you can share a lot of the costs. I think that's where the money is. And I think we're at that point now where we need to decide, do we sell the business? Because we haven't really given it 100%. We've both given it maybe 50% of our effort. So combined is 100% of two people. But so we've got to decide, do we sell? Do we open up another location? And I think we're pushing towards opening another location. We just got to decide, do we stick with CrossFit or do we just try a Globo gym model, which I know is everything that CrossFit is not, but there is a tried and tested market. And in a way, between us, I see it as almost easier income stream. I see that because it is just a cycle, a battle, like a constant, like attract new people. And then we charge a higher price point. And I look at your Fitness First and your Snap and your, that sort of business model where they have a low price point, but they have hundreds of members and they don't care if they come or not. Like, I mean, can you imagine? Like, how good would that be?
Thousands of members. I remember
Jim does.
Yeah, our studio is 6,000. Yeah. Look, it kind of aligns perfectly, right? Like one, can the business operate without you is another thing. Like I've got a little note there, like you should be able to take a holiday, buy a house, have kids, sick days. It shouldn't be a grind. Like business, like yes, there's obviously good days, bad days. You shouldn't just be grinding every single day. You should be working on, I guess, and explaining it as building the machine, right? Like, and it's hard when you're not in it 100%. Maybe one of you can go in 100%, which might be better than both of you 50%. And I totally get the 24-hour gym thing, that it seems easier, but it's going to have its own headaches, right? Like you probably don't see it on the surface. But yeah, I don't think no business is easy. They all have their own sort of nuances and issues that are going to pop up. You don't typically know until you get into it. I think that what's the old saying is like, if I knew what I knew now, I probably wouldn't have started it. But you kind of like just keep digging and chipping away and chipping away and chipping away. And yeah, it's having, like being able to step back and, and this is, being the coach or the operator versus the business owner and building the machine. You kind of need to go both ways. And depending on what stage you're at, you might need to be all of it. And Matt, you said, you're probably mostly operator at the moment, and you're running out of time to do the rest. It's a grind. Startup life is a grind, like it's 5 a.m. starts, it's 12, like it's late nights, it's in between. Like, yeah, trust me, I've been there, and I've done it. I'd much rather do it the other way. When you get past that, it's much better, but you have to really focus on it as well, right? But I guess, and a mentor and a business coach or advisory or any of the courses, like, you're just trying to identify things that are limiting you now and how you can get to where you want to get to faster, easier, setting up the systems. Like, if you knew how to do it, we wouldn't be here anyway, right? Like, if that makes sense. I probably could have cut 5 years off my business journey, being ahead of where I am now, if I had someone back in 2007 saying, this is how you set up your CrossFit gym. This is like, back in our day, we didn't even have a Gain Fast. We didn't have equipment in Australia. We had to buy it from overseas. Like, you're just kind of like solving problems. But if you had someone to say, hey, this is what I did, I would probably do that. It's typically not things you would have thought about yourself. So that's, we all want to get there, and you need to have that shining light, that goal, that set up the school, or maybe have the multiple locations here, or maybe it's a CrossFit and a 24-hour gym side by side, like whatever that looks like. But you won't really know until you step back, start working on the structure and the system and what that looks like. So, and kind of goes into the next slide, is like, when to seek mentorship or coaching or business advice and advisory. Like, there's no right or wrong. I like preface everything, right? I don't know everything. I'm definitely not the expert in everything out there, but there's no right or wrong. Like, it comes down to having a desire to grow. Like, you guys wouldn't be here if you don't want to grow, get beyond where you are now. You want to grow your business, get better at it, be more financially stable, open a second location. You need that desire, but you also need your own personal internal commitment that you're going to take action on that. Because anyone could watch all of these sessions back without committing to one being here live, and then just do nothing about it. You're going to get nothing out of it, right? So you need to take the action is the second part of it. You need to be accountable to yourself to do, I guess, what the mentor or the coach or the advice is of the book or the podcast or the course or whatever that looks like, right? You need to have that. So, and coachability is a huge one too, from my experience. And this is way back in the early days, people weren't the most receptive to, and you talked about CrossFit, Kiri, you're like, no, don't tell anyone I said 24-hour gym. Like, fitness is fitness, right? Like, don't sugarcoat. Like, it's all good. It's all better than nothing, right? Like, it's better than someone sitting on the couch. And realistically, I think that the stat is like 16% of Australians have a gym membership. So really the disservice is the people that aren't getting to the gym. So we shouldn't be fighting between ourselves. That kind of goes to that coachability. Like, you should be open to changing and being flexible. Like, it's not necessarily your way or the highway. And like CrossFitters, and from my experience, typically seem to be very stubborn and like, no, this is exactly how it should be. But yeah, there's no right or wrong. If you've got both of those, it could be like at the very start, it could be pre-start, like startups, and it's probably more prevalent in America. Get funding. They haven't even started a business, and they've got a board of directors, and they're figuring out what the business is. Like, that's how like early it can be. Before you even have a product to serve, before you know anything, you can already have mentorship and guidance and things like that. You can definitely have it down the track as well when you're more stable or financially set up, or time bandwidth is probably another one. When you've progressed off the tools, I guess, to working on the business is usually the next sort of roadmap. But yeah, you definitely need to have the desire to improve, and then, be able to absorb the information. Like, I don't know everything. Hopefully, maybe you guys, if you knew everything, you could be, giving us the session and stuff like that, right? There's no one-stop shop for knowing everything. You should be humble enough to know that, everyone's got some nuggets.
Hayden, do you find, because you mentor a lot of small business owners, you deal with the "it's my baby" kind of attitude, like the fear of relinquishing responsibility 100%. Was a huge thing for me. I think because like I it's not that I think I did it better, but I knew that my way worked. So if I relinquished any of that responsibility, and that even came down to getting other coaches in, casual just to, you know, get a bit more work-life balance. Like I was always like slightly distrusting because, you know, a business is tied to your mortgage, right?
So, yeah, look, hey,
it takes one bad experience. I think it might have been Jason last week. He said one bad experience is enough to lose a member. And you know, when you pass on and you go and see a mentor and they might criticize something that you have done and you think you're proud of, like, I think, you know, for me, like, I'd probably get a little defensive, you know?
Yeah, oh, definitely.
Do you deal with that all the time, or is that just me being?
You should, like, one, you should, and two, yes, I'm like, and every mentor or coach or whatever is going to have their own style. Kind of like podcasts, you need to find someone that you can align with and absorb their information. I'm pretty, outside of this, I guess, presentation, pretty direct, and I, you know, give open and honest feedback. You know, back, I think you might have missed the very start. Like, we ran CrossFit gyms, multiple sites with about 10 full-time trainers. So yeah, like, definitely at the start, like, it's your baby, right? Like, no one, even, you know, if you take pride in it, no one cleans the toilets as good as you. No one can sweep the floor. No one can run a class as good as you. You know, like, you know, no one can program. Here's a good one. No one can program the best workout in the world as good as you can, right? Like, realistically, squat, run, you know, pull, push, like, there's only so many things you can be doing, right? So once you get past that and understand the business is a tool, and, you know, it is your baby, but you're going to end up being the bottleneck and the roadblock for its growth if you don't let other people come in and help you. But saying that, you need to have the systems and the framework and the structure for them to come in and do that. If you just hand someone the keys and say, you know, run it, like, they're going to do whatever the hell they want, right? They're going to have probably no idea to start with. So, you know, we're talking, you know, frameworks and SOPs and, you know, cultural alignment and things like that. Like, there's so many different, you know, things that are encompassed in there. But yeah, definitely, like, and, you know, on the flip side, on the mentor side and coaching people, yeah, it's delivering it in a way that, you know, it gives you value and, you know, you're receptive enough. Like, my job as a mentor or as a coach is not to just, like, you know, call people out and make people feel stupid, right? It's to propose different ideas and different concepts, and, hey, like, I did this back in the day, or have you tried this, and different things, more to, you know, highlight. And we talked about shining a light on the path. You know, a mentor is not going to do it for you. No one's going to do it for you. So it's up to you to grow and run and set up your business. But yeah, definitely, look, hands up, I did everything you've said. You know, I'm pretty defensive back in the day, but once you figure out that, you know, there's that side, you started it, it is your baby. And we've gone through, I've sold multiple businesses as well, and the same sort of thing. Once you sell it, there's this weird feeling too when you're acquired, like, that was my baby and it's not anymore, right? Like, someone else owns it now, like, and they can do realistically whatever they want. They shouldn't, because they bought it for a reason, right? You know, that's a whole nother thing. That's a life cycle of the business from startup to exit. But yeah, like, I've been on both ends of that, and I totally get what you're saying. But yeah, I'd say you need to find someone that can, you know, and it's a trust thing. You need to have the trust that the coach or the mentor is, you know, giving you good advice, or, you know, like, not just, you know, like, steering in the wrong direction. So, and it's trust both ways. Definitely. All right, I think we kind of probably just touched on a bunch of different things there. We're kind of like skipping ahead as we go, which is great. Like, it's kind of leading the conversation. But the benefits of having a mentor, it's not like a no-brainer, right? Like, there's obviously, you know, it's like business. It's not, there's no finite number of benefits. It's pretty vast. But, you know, like, the key ones I would say is probably, like we said before, like, someone's going to have 20 years experience. Like Jason, how many, you know, like, he's won the games, you know, before I even opened my first gym, whatever. Like, he's going to have all that experience and different scenarios, and he's done all these different things. So he can probably, you know, guide, you know, someone in that same space much quicker and easier. Like, he's going to have more knowledge and frameworks in his head of how to deal with situations and how to fast track. So another big thing is fast tracking where you want to get to, you know, like, you know, the end goal is to have a school that offers scholarships. You need to find someone that's probably done that, right? Like, that's, you know, how do you do that? And if it's not being done in Australia, start asking questions in America. You know, I mean, like, it's not that it can't be done. It's been done. Business has been done. Gyms have been done. You know, like, it's just finding someone that has done it before, and kind of, or a course or podcast or book or whatever that looks like, right? Like, very few things are unique and new in the world. avoiding costly mistakes. We've talked about this a couple of times. Yeah, I should have probably had a good example. I'm sure you guys have had good examples of, you know, things that have cost you time and money. But yeah, like you definitely, yeah, want to avoid costly mistakes, because the longer you can stay in business, the more you can, you know, help people and fulfill people's lives and change people's lives and get closer to your goal. Another benefit is just sanity, like having someone else to talk to about these kinds of things. Like you can't talk to your members. You know, Kira, I know you said you and your husband are in this, but if you weren't, like, it's hard to even talk to. I did our second business, the distribution business, with my wife, but the first one I had other business partners in the gyms. But yeah, unless you've got partners or something like that, it's hard to talk to people about the struggles and the issues that you're going through in business ownership, because most people that work a 9 to 5, they check in, check out. They don't, you know, they don't have any concept of like the stress that you go home with, Kiri, about your mortgage is relying on the gym to pay the bills because you use that to get the lease, or you've got to get a loan to get equipment. Like they don't understand any of that. Or, you know, I've got to hand over the gym to the first employee to run the class and it's my baby. Like all these kinds of things, and just having someone to talk to can sometimes be, you know, a godsend. But yeah, do you guys have... Sorry?
The thing that I don't have a dedicated mentor, but the thing that I really appreciated was having someone who was external to the business, who had no emotional connection to it. I think when you remove the emotion from it, really opens your eyes, because I'm so emotional. Like a member leaves, I get cut deep, you know.
You should.
It's so helpful to have an external person look at you and go, you know what, like, let's just focus on facts and figures and growth, and remove the emotions from it. And that's a benefit that maybe you didn't talk about, was literally just someone who is not emotionally invested or financially invested in the business.
Yeah, definitely. Right. Like you want to get to that level yourself, but you're always going to have some sort of emotion, right? Because you care so much about, you know, once you get past the it's my baby stage, you should just care about the product, which is the coaching. You know, it's probably why you care so much. Hopefully it's why you care about people leaving, right? Like they came to you to change their life, and you're in the middle of doing that and they leave and you're like, oh God, I didn't get to where we needed to get to, right? There's the flip side where they leave to a competitor. That's a whole nother thing, but yeah, 100%. But then, you know, the mentor should be able to say, you know, like, why did they leave, and kind of help you guide through, you know, dissecting why people are leaving and different issues that you might not even see yourself. And you said you might have a mentor, Kiri, but like, what sort of questions would you guys have for mentors? Or like, is it everything, Matt? Like, it's just like, I need everything, or would you have a few specific things?
Oh, Kiri.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if it was a question for Matt. Sorry. So for me, look, we had, I'm just thinking from where Matt's perspective is, like, we had a disastrous start to the business. We purchased an existing business, and even the figures that were provided were fraudulent. So we went in there thinking we knew what we were doing, and had we had an external person looking and advising us, we would have saved ourselves 2 years of just getting the gym back on track. Like, I mean, literally, I have 100% surety that had we got a mentor in at the time of purchasing a business, we would have saved ourselves a lot of money and maybe even decisions and poor business decisions. But now that we've survived, I would need a mentor to talk about the next steps. You know, how do you take it? You know, is my gym is plateauing. You know, like, we have, it's a bit like your weight, really. You have a happy weight, might go down a few kilos and up a few kilos, but that's just where it is. Same with our memberships, you know, and we plateaued. So something, we can't grow too much more, but you know, like I said, you either maintain status quo or you grow, right? So I need a mentor to look at my business, look at the opportunities for growth that I haven't seen, and work out a strategy on how that can be put in place. And like I said, I need to make a decision. Do I move this from a hobby to a full-time job? So that's what I need a business mentor for. And if I do decide to purchase another business, I need information about acquisition and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Like probably the key question there is the commitment part. Like you don't want to get halfway down the rabbit hole of the other two, growing the current one and buying a second one before you figure out if you want to commit to it, right? Like, so that's probably the key driver. And yeah, like 100%. Like
you have to replace the finances, right? So it's weird to work with someone else, but I have a guaranteed income. Yeah. So, you know, like if you're going to replace that, you need to make sure there's viability in the other options. So I guess, you know, that's it. Yeah. So we're prepared to, if there is going to be money there to replace the money that we would lose by not working in other jobs for other people. Yeah.
And when you purchase, it sounds like one of those costly mistakes that could have been avoided, right? Like it's a hard lesson to learn, right? Like, especially when you've already done it and you go through it, it's pretty tough. But yeah, like avoiding things like that, like what if you didn't survive? You know, like there's businesses out there that go through making a single decision and they, unfortunately don't survive. So it's good that you just survive, but yeah, definitely a mentor, or they probably would have advised. I don't know if you had, lawyers and all of that sort of looking over it as well. Like,
yeah, you do. But I mean, lawyers don't care. They just charge you a lot of money to put a signature on the bottom of a.
If we weren't recording, contract. I'd give you my thoughts on lawyers, but no.
Another thing,
a necessary evil. But yeah, their end game, can sometimes be just driving up the bill, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But Matthew talked about joining.
Just like to interject that we have a really good pre-recorded session with some of the lawyers that we partnered with on last round, and they did quite a good job, I think, of balancing the two.
Right.
Yeah.
Depends on who you do it with, for sure.
Here, as in a reason why he's doing fitbox, and like things for me, like I would love to know a really good accountant that gets CrossFit gyms. Currently I spend a lot of money with an accountant who doesn't even go to the gym. He couldn't care less. He just charges his massive fee. And are we getting the best? Are we whatever tax breaks and writing things off as expenses? No, we're probably not. And that's probably worth several $1,000s a year. But, who's going to tell you, unless you go and see a mentor who's done that, who's going to recommend like something like that? Who's going to recommend like what software you use? Like, that's why, I really do think mentorship is so important, but it's just a cost, like when you think like where Matthew is in a new business, you go, what's my priority? It's getting members in the door. Mm-hmm. So I'm, after 5 years now, if I'm going to apply for another grant, don't get me wrong, of course I'm going to, my next thing will be mentorship, because I've got the website, I've got the photography, I've got the signage. So the next thing is work on the business, right? It's just for a lot of people, it doesn't seem to be a initial priority, where it actually, like I said at the beginning, if I'd got a mentor at the beginning, would have saved me many years of hardship.
Yeah, definitely. And like onto the next slide, like, a good mentor should be able to, let me just bring it up, like work through you with these frameworks. And we've talked about what, in the fit biz industry, people just, the low barrier to entry, there's a passion there, and then, we want to go and start a business. The guidance, mentorship, whatever, is not even really considered. It's not even added to the pot of capital that's used to start businesses and stuff like that. But imagine if you did have that at the start, how much easier it would have been to run through, if you want to run through this. But your list, Kiri, like websites, like different, accounting, like different things that people should be thinking for. But these are probably, the pillars and the main cores of any business. Obviously, they get nuanced or sort of suited to, whatever type of style of gym you have, but like mindset, the vision, mission, purpose. Matt, I think you said you just went through a big process of kind of like nailing that down. But you're going to have an internal version for yourself, what that looks like, that you're probably not going to share with people. There's always going to be an external version. Operations and systems, we talked about SOPs and how to hand the baby over, Kiri. Like sales and revenue, like sales does cure all, but you can only fit so many people into a gym, so you need to figure out maximizing, your revenue for your space and what that looks like and how you can best do that. Financial intelligence. You probably, do you cover off on your own books as well, Kiri? Like, have you dove deep on, or do you just hand it over to the accountant to do?
Oh, I use Xero. So I do every day reconciliation, and I manage all the invoices and stuff, but I use an accountant to do my BAS and my, they manage the company, whatever it's called. They charge a lot of money to handle the file. They do nothing. but they charge me a hefty price. But yeah, so I mean, every quarter I pay my BAS. I think I should look elsewhere. But yes, so I'm confident enough to handle my daily transactions and stuff, but not like I could do a BAS if I wanted to. But like I said, there's that some sort of reassurance that you've got an actual accountant, even though I didn't even realize you have to pay insurance on accountants. What's that all about? I have to take out extra insurance to protect any decision my accountants make that may be wrong.
Yeah, because it typically comes back on you regardless, right? Like there's always that thing you sign off on. You know, you're happy. I guess more for me, financial intelligence, like, and this goes back to outsourcing. Like, you don't need to be the expert at everything. You just need to have an understanding of these principles and have someone else have those so that you know when to outsource. Definitely outsource BAS. Like, no one who wants to do, I don't want to do BAS. I don't want to do any of that stuff, but you probably need to know how to read the P&L, the cash flow statement, you know, all that sort of stuff. So you can pick up anything that, you know, even just having the conversation with them might highlight that. They'll probably be the expert at, you know, rubber stamping BASs, but you having an understanding on how to read the P&L, you know, is slightly different. So, and that goes for all of these, you know, like understanding or having a mentor that understands these are the key things you need to have. Which ones are you missing? You know, like, you know, are you missing financial intelligence, or is it branding and marketing, or is it, you know, technology, you know, websites? It says disruption, but think of when Instagram first came in, or Facebook, you know, that was huge back in the day, I'm talking like 2008, 9 Facebook, pre-ads, like, these things pop up in TikTok now kind of thing. Like, you don't need to be the expert at it. You just need someone else to tell you to look there or to do some work on it. Like, you know, as a mentor, I'm not going to do anyone's books, but I'll probably, you know, like, happy to work through P&Ls and different things and say, hey, have you looked at this? Like, why does this, you know, why is this cash flow? Why is this sitting on, you know, different line items or GL codes and things like that? So yeah, like, it's, you know, it's not that you should be the pro and expert. Yes, you know, talking about startup life, yes, you have to be the person doing the coaching, the programming, the photos, the websites, all of that. But you want to get to a stage, hopefully sooner rather than later, where, you know, you're working on all of these things, but it's hard to know what to work on unless you've done an MBA, or you've done a previous business, or you've just got so much money, you know, you're looking to spend it, you know, because the government's giving you all the grants to do it. So we're just trying to find, you know, a great framework to do that, and a good mentor should be able to, right? Like, and these are the questions you want to be asking when you're looking for coaching, mentoring, when you're looking at books or podcasts or even courses. Like, who's delivering the information? What's their background? And what wins do they have on the board? You know, there's so many, and going back to social media and Instagram, maybe even TikTok on there, but you see all these like 22-year-old life coaches like giving advice, or, you know, you see the coaches on Instagram that do my new booty workouts and stuff like that. Like, you know, you don't want to take, you know, advice from someone that doesn't have any life experience giving life coaching. So the same as business, right? Like, you don't want to find and align with a mentor that's necessarily built their business off, you know, coaching through Instagram or something like that. You want to probably find, and this is me, just personal preference, I want to find someone that's done business, created real businesses, gone through the startup, through the stages, or, you know, Matt, we talked about, you know, someone who's done the scholarships or some sort of, you know, similar sort of thing that you're looking to do. Or maybe that's the end goal and you get a different mentor for each stage of where you want to get to. So yeah, just making sure that you understand I guess the systems and the frameworks that are required for your business, but making sure that the mentor, you know, is way past your experience in all of them so that you can lean on them as a sounding board to go back and forward. And obviously a great product. I forgot about that there right at the end there. Definitely need a great product. You definitely need to be able to deliver a great class. You know, I know Jason talks about, you know, just delivering great classes. It kind of goes back to, you know, there's no world's perfect workout, right? Like, once you understand that, and, you know, like, you're delivering a great product, the experience, or, you know, if it's a, you know, a consumable, or if it's a service or whatever that looks like, the underlying business is the same, but definitely a great product layered on top, because you can have great business principles and a terrible product, and, you know, you'll still go out of business, or vice versa. You can have a great product and terrible business, you know, principles, and you can still go out of business. So you kind of need to be able to, you know, mash the two together. But yeah, if anyone's got any questions on that, or any other things you want to go over, feel free to shoot them. Like, I don't think mentoring is, and this is just, before we jump in, if you guys are thinking like it, it's not a magic pill, right? Like I said, I'm like, if anyone engages me for coaching and not here, other clients, and they ask me to do their best, I'll be like, not a chance. One, I wouldn't even know. I'm definitely not the expert. But, it's more about having a sounding board or guiding and asking questions and building trust in the relationship and figuring out where you want to get to, where you are, seeing what you're missing. And you can't do it all at once either, right? So it's picking the low-hanging fruit or the things that are going to give you the biggest bang for buck, and then setting you on the way. Like you're eventually, at the end of the day, it's your baby, it's your business. So you can't kind of just, and similar to just handing it off to the accountant, you can't just hand it off to someone to do for you. Like you're going to have the accountability at the end of the day. But it's not going to do it for you, but it is a very, very good tool to have in the toolbox.
Just a question on the mentorship. Sorry, Hayden. I just jumped on your website. Do you or just typically mentors charge like how do you charge? Like, do you charge for like an hourly call, or do you charge for a period of time or a project, or how does it work? Because I'm actually not familiar with the.
Yeah, no, good question. And like, there's no right or wrong. I'm going to say probably everyone does it differently. I don't necessarily, I'm happy to do a one-on-one call. And I was going to say at the end of this, happy to, book through the site. I think there's a form there, you can fill it in and we can, jump on a call and go through. But I don't typically think it's worth your while or my while to do one-off sessions. Like it's not really something you're going to get much benefit out of. It's more of a continuing and an ongoing kind of coaching scenario. Matt, think about, trying to put people through scholarships. Like it's an ongoing coaching experience, right? So yeah, typically it's, and it's different if you're doing one-on-one, Kiri, versus small group, or, there's different kind of deliverables from my side in terms of my specific coaching. But every coach is going to be different. But yeah, one-on-one, whether it's call or, we run stuff through Slack messaging. I don't know if you've ever done that. Yeah, and Zoom calls once a month. And then, practically on call, for top tier clients, I guess, is probably that. And that, that's a different price to people that, touch base, every fortnight. We do it in a group kind of setting where it's not necessarily one-on-one. But I do the research, like it's jump online, scope out a few other places. Definitely the academy is a great spot as well, and it's free. But yeah, there's a lot of mentors out there and everyone's going to charge different, I guess, rates for different services. Based on, I guess, their experience and maybe their bandwidth as well.
I gotta say, from my learnings of the academy, and this is our second intake now, I think a lot of business owners probably struggle with giving their time consistently to something like this, or even something potentially with mentorship. I think a lot of people in their head would simply just go, oh, I don't have the time of the week for that. What would your thoughts or input be on that kind of statement for somebody who has that in their head, who could be rewatching this, for example?
Yeah. I think Kiri asked a good question before, similar sort of thing, right? Like, my job, giving feedback, people get a bit prickly sometimes, but it's also holding people accountable. Like to say that you don't have 30 minutes to an hour once or twice a month, depending on what sort of mentoring or coaching, like you're kind of just in a limiting mindset. You're really limiting and focusing. So my job with half of our, clients is just keeping them accountable. Like obviously it's in everyone's calendars, but it's pulling people out, and things happen. I get that. And, I've got kids and family as well outside of business. So if things pop up where you just legitimately need to reschedule, but everyone's got the time realistically, to do it. I came from running CrossFit gyms when the highly prized time and priority of our day was our own training. It was like, we're going to set aside 3 hours for our own training every day and not run classes. So yeah, it should be a good mentor, should be able to hold people accountable. But it's probably a limiting mindset belief is what I would say is why someone wouldn't have, the time to commit 1 hour a week. I guess these sessions were 1 hour a week for, 5-6 weeks. But yeah, just think of the reward benefits for doing that, right? Like that 1 hour could change your entire business, could change the entire trajectory. Like if you got one thing from, one of these sessions or from a mentor or a coach or advisory, where you could then hire people to do the shit you don't want to do, right? Like, it changes the trajectory, but you just need to commit that time. It's just stopping and understanding that the world's not going to end if you stop to learn something or grow the business. It's the in versus the working on business. It's working in the business versus working on. And yeah, a good mentor should just hold you accountable for that.
Actually, as you were saying that, it kind of reminds me of a saying I've heard once before, that if you don't have 10 minutes in your day to meditate, you need it the most. And it almost, in my head, thinks the business equivalent would be, if you don't have an hour spare to work on your business, that's exactly why you should be doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's different techniques for that too. Like most people don't even keep a proper calendar. Like you should be blocking out, like in, Hannah, we were trying to lock in a time. I literally block out all of my time on my calendar, like for everything that I need to be working on. And I even block time in for myself, like put my kids to bed time, like everything should, like if you're not doing that, then you have heaps of time because your calendar is literally free. You're just making it up as you go like this. And, that's just a technique that I would straight up tell people to do. Like you should be blocking everything from when you wake up to meditating, like whatever, just it should be popping up in your thing or blocked out where you can't commit it to something else. And it's committed for the set thing that you decided a week ago, a month ago, whenever you set your calendar, that you needed to move forward and progress your life.
Amazing. All right, last call, final questions, guys. You got anything else?
When we start, mate? When's the mentorship happening?
When's your grant coming through, Matty?
Better block out some more on that calendar, mate.
Yeah. Well, haven't you changed the tune from when we first jumped on and I was in the Navy and you want to talk to me? Different lives. Look, I'm happy for you guys to jump on the site. I think Kiri said you already had. I think there's a questionnaire there. Fill that in. And happy to get back to you and lock in a time to have a chat one-on-one and go down that path.
Amazing. And if I'm just correct in saying so, that offer would stand for anyone who's reviewing this at a later date.
Yeah,
so for those who aren't able to make the session live today, please feel free to do that. Jump on, reach out to Hayden. As you can see, despite his Navy background, he's a lovely man who knows exactly how to help businesses get ahead with a huge amount of experience.
Long time ago. Thank you very much. Thanks,
there you go. He keeps distancing himself with that. But yes, of course. Thank you, Hayden, so much for contributing to the Academy for the first time. It's been awesome having you on board. Guys, just a quick reminder that next week is our final session for this intake. So we're going to be doing one of my favorite sessions, which is website review. So we're working together with Cody Thompson, who is of WordSites, who you may have heard of. That company has since actually changed hands. So he literally is barred from actually selling you anything. So he is there purely to provide you advice and input based on his business of building literally thousands, tens of thousands of websites. Last intake, we did some awesome exercises with those who were live on the call, with literally pulling up their website and him giving his initial impressions and advice. So it's a really valuable session. I learned a lot doing it. I'm actually super excited to do it again. So please make sure you can get along to that one if you are able to. And until next week, we will chat to you guys then.
Thank you so much, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers, guys.
Jaden.
Speak to you soon.